one. We gave away Washington on the show. I'm sitting on a few others that I don't mind at all, to be honest with you. I like them. But what do I ask? The AAC with Temple, like I said, the Sun Belt. I took Arkansas Little Rock. The only one that I've taken underneath, 9-1 is Arkansas Little Rock, because they only have to play 2 games to win. So they're plus 165. I took a shot with them, and I added a little bit of a small play on Fresno. Also got UTEP at plus 2,700. I know we talked about that. Savannah State. That's another free play today. If you guys want to jot that one down, Savannah State. But right now, let's get into a little Cubs talk with Jesse Rogers. Got a lot going on here today. Sorry. Jeez, man. Official review. All I need is overtime. I really don't need overtime in this. But, hey, what can you do? Let's give Jesse a call, see what's going on with him. Talk a little Cubs here. All right. Oops. Did the wrong one. Sorry about that, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Jesse. Sean Harnish up in Boston. How you doing today?
Good. What's going on?
What's up, man? Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're back home from spring training on a little break, I assume, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I go back next week.
Right, for the long haul. Well, I do appreciate it. A lot to get to. You guys got probably the best front office going, best manager in baseball. Theo Epstein, he did wonders for us up here. Is he still playing the guitar publicly? He was big with Peter Gammons doing the little benefit things with the guitar.
Yeah, they still do that a couple times a year, once in Boston, once in Chicago. So, yeah, he's still doing it.
Yeah. He's a good guy. Gotta like him. Obviously, more ties to Boston with, John Lester. We'll start there. First of all, I mean, you guys, tough spring, which is, not always, doesn't say much about the season, but what's the order around the clubhouse right now? What's going on? What's the problems up there?
Yeah, they're just getting ready for the season. It's not a big deal, their spring record. As long as veterans are having some success here and there and getting ready, and they really are. Everyone's gotten their hits when they needed to, a couple home runs here and there. Addison Russell's looked good. The starting staff has looked good for the most part. I know John Lester got hit a little bit today. A couple were infield hits. So
yeah.
This is the year where you don't worry about the spring record. Last year their spring record was bad, and Madden lit into them. This year, I think it's just a matter of, minor leaguers coming in and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, most of these veterans, like Iridia, Lester, Lackey, they're still throwing the ball. They're not even pitching yet. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't look too much into that. Has Lester been working on his throw to first base?
Yeah. I've seen him work on it, and it's not pretty. He just has an issue with that move. They've tried everything. They've tried throwing it hard over there. They've tried just tossing it over there. It's not going to be pretty, but I think it could be better than it was last year. It can't get worse, so it only can get better at this point. But the answer is, yeah, he's working on it.
Right. I mean, he had a slightly down year for him. I mean, he spent a lot of years in Boston. He came up in the organization, so I don't know whether it was a transition thing or just a difference to the National League, but I have faith that he'll come back strong. He's a workhorse. Lackey will give you plenty of innings. Iridia is the one that, I worry about a little bit. You look at his numbers compared to normal. I mean, everything was way up. The pitching staff was healthy for the most part. You got Hamels and Hendricks, but, I'm just worried that maybe they peaked 1 year too early, and, as far as health-wise, but looking down as far as depth, what are some young names in the pitching staff that could make some starts later in the season?
Well, the guy they traded Starlin Castro for, Adam Warren is his name,
yep.
Came over from the Yankees. They think highly. I mean, they traded a 3-time All-Star for him, obviously. So he's going to be like the sixth man. ready to go if something happens. And you're not wrong about Arrieta, and Lackey's 37. So trust me, as you mentioned, Theo's pretty smart. They are preparing for the worst. They're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. So if one of those guys goes down, they basically have 4 relievers. This is unusual, too. This is the other way they're preparing. Travis Wood was a former starter. Trevor Cahill, former starter. Adam Warren can start. Unusual bullpen, so they are ready in case. Now, I wouldn't want to count on these guys for 20 starts, but at least they don't have to, panic if they do lose a guy for a while.
Sure. I mean, we could go from player to player in this lineup. There's a story behind each player. I mean, between Zobrist, Hayward, all the rookies. But obviously, you bring in Hayward, the best probably WAR defense. I think he saved like 7 runs according to the WAR metric last year. Best in baseball. That's basically what you're paying for with him. Zobrist, best utility player, reunited back with Madden. But I look towards the young guys, especially I forget who it was. If it was, if it was Rizzo or Bryant, second half of the season, strikeouts way up. Sort of the book's sort of coming out on them. Do you guys worry about a sophomore slump, and have they been working on, location where they've been struggling and stuff like that this spring? Are they hard workers? Oh,
yeah. Bryant is tireless. He's a robot up there. If he slumps, it won't be for long. That's what's great. The great players, they all slump. It's how long does the slump last? Mm-hmm. And for a guy like Bryant will be like one of these great players. The slump won't last long. Same with Rizzo. It was Bryant that had 199 strikeouts last year, so he can only go down, and it will. 26 home runs, 99 ribbies, led the league in all those categories for rookies. So Bryant will get better. There'll be a slump somewhere along the line. Kyle Schwarber only was up for a few months. He could bounce a little bit. Addison Russell's looked great in camp, so he'll get overmatched on some pitchers, but I think he'll feast on some 3, 4, and 5s in the rotation. So look, young guys have their strengths, have their weaknesses, but what's their talent level? It's through the roof. Mm-hmm. And if last year was any indication, these guys have even more to give. But someone will have that moment or year or month or whatever where he's not as good. That's why this team has a lot of depth to overcome.
Sure. By the way, that Chris Bryant interview was great. I watched that yesterday. Good stuff.
It was fun. Yeah. Because it was 80 degrees and beautiful.
Yeah. Give me the name of one under-the-radar player to look out for this year on the Cubs.
That's a good question. Well, I'll start with this. I think, and it's not under the radar, but I think Addison Russell, as I mentioned, is going to be an unbelievable defensive player. Yep. I think with Simmons in the AL, he's going to win the Gold Glove, and he's going to possibly hit 20 home runs as a 22-year-old. I mean, think about 20 home run, 22-year-old that wins the Gold Glove at shortstop, no less. So that's kind of my breakout player. Again, there will be moments where he'll look overmatched. As far as someone to come out of the blue, if they have to dip down to the minors, here's something interesting. Phil Epstein took over in 2011. Yep. The Cubs have concentrated on offense in the draft especially. Yep. They have not drafted a pitcher who has thrown one pitch in the major leagues for the Cubs. Not one guy in the 2012, 13, 14 draft, not one guy has made it to the major leagues. The guy that could do it, in my mind, his name's Ryan Williams. 2014, 10th round pick, I think it was, went 14-3 last year in single and double A. And he's going to take over in Triple A. He's a big guy, like in the Jason Hamill, John Lester mold. Sure. And he's going to start at Triple A. If they don't dip into their bullpen for a spot starter, Ryan Williams would be the guy that kind of can come out of nowhere. He's on the track that Kyle Hendricks was on a few years ago when the Cubs traded for him. He's now their 5th starter. So there's a guy that can kind of come out of the blue. Position player-wise, there really isn't anybody. Yeah. I mean, Baez and Solera there in terms of depth if someone gets hurt. So the only surprise has to come from the pitching staff.
Right. It's funny because I believe Theo's first player he ever drafted was John Lester, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. But he was pretty deep in Boston in his early years. He was, he was deep into the pitchers. So to see not a ton of pitchers coming up, I mean, maybe because Houston snags them all early in the rounds, but, it's surprising. But, I mean, for what he did is unbelievable. But I know we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to do a quick rapid fire. But first, I got one question from one of our listeners.
Sure.
there was talks a little bit last year, Madden complaining about the home schedule, how you sort of get day game, night game, day game, night game, and I don't know a ton about it, but from what I do know, there's some sort of city ordinance. I know he was trying to get things so you would at least play a couple day games together, a couple night games together. Did they get any headway on that that you know of this year?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, the Cubs are only allowed 40 night games, which is less than any other team, obviously, and
right.
that's the highest they've ever had. So what Madden got was on Fridays. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are all day games with the Cubs,
yeah.
For the most part, I should say. There are a few Saturday 6 o'clock games. Anyway, Fridays are either 1:20 or 3:05. Most players don't like the 3:05. You're sort of caught in between.
Right.
You kind of can sleep in, but not really. And then it kind of screws you up for the next day. So they'd almost rather play a 1:20 game or a 7 o'clock game, because at least you get a normal night of sleep after a 1:20. Anyway, that's the thing. So the Cubs do not travel home from anywhere on Thursday this year. On Thursdays, so there was no need for a 3:05 game. In the past, when they travel on Thursday, they try to play 3:05 on Friday, just mess them up for the weekend. So because they do not travel home on a Thursday, they play all Friday 1:20 games, and that's what Madden wanted, a little bit more consistency, because for the most part it goes 1:20, 1:20, 1:20, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unless, of course, they're playing on ESPN and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more consistency, and in general, players don't like 3:05 starts.
Wow, so they don't have a lot of road trips where they're coming home without a day's rest? For the most part?
Yep. No, they either come home, let's say, late Wednesday and have Thursday off, or whatever, or they're playing at home on Thursday. They do not. Thursday's a big travel day, and it just, for whatever reason, they're not traveling home on a Thursday all season long, and that really benefits them for the weekend, setting up what's going on.
That is huge. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, nice.
Now, really, I mean, I'm into sports betting, fantasy betting, as you know. I mean, that's huge, but I wanted to know, what's your opinion on, with the new stadium setup? I know in April you get a lot of wind blowing in, which tends to lead to lower scoring games, which is beneficial for me to know, obviously. But have you noticed with the new setup that the winds hasn't been as much of a factor here early in the season, or even as it goes along?
Yeah, so you talk for, say, the wind, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, especially earlier in the year. Yeah. Did you notice with the new construction?
It's a factor in favor of the pitchers.
Right.
Wrigley Field has been playing much smaller, and last year was as bad as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
It really did not blow out until August, consistently. I mean, there may have been a day or two, but from April to August, the wind was blowing in. And it's part of the reason why the Cubs had a great finish, because
sure.
They're a home run hitting team, and the wind started to blow up in the second half, and they put up some huge numbers. But it's really not a good hitting park in the early portion of the season.
Right.
In fact, players like Chris Bryant have changed their swing a little bit. They don't want to hit fly balls in this wind that's coming towards them.
Right.
They want to hit line drives, and he was a fly ball hitter, so he needed to change his swing plane a little bit. He did that, but yeah, it's a weird park. It plays several different ways throughout the year, but more small than big.
Right. But,
I'm sorry, more big than small.
Right, but so you're saying it really didn't have to do with the new setup. It was just sort of the wind just never changed. I noticed it. I was waiting for all the big, the big totals to come out, like 10s instead of 6s in big high-scoring games. It never happened last year.
No, it didn't happen. The scoreboard didn't have anything to do with it.
Right, okay.
It's the weather, and if the weather's not... If the wind's not blowing in, the weather was cold, and cold weather doesn't lead to home runs either. So the combination of hot weather and wind blowing out didn't happen until August, late July, something like that.
Excellent. We're talking to Jesse Rogers, man. I appreciate you coming on. A couple quick rapid-fire questions. Over/under 92 wins for the season for the Cubs.
Oh, I'll go over. I know that seems like the easy answer now, but I'll go over. They just have too much depth not to get to at least 90.
Who wins the division?
Cubs win the division. Cubs and then Pirates. I think the Cardinals finish third.
All right. Who wins the World Series?
Well,
is this the year? Can you imagine if Theo and John Lester break the streak twice? It's crazy.
Right. I'm going to say no, but for no real scientific reason other than the fact that it just would seem too easy in this second year contending, they just do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say the Mets. I'm going to say the Mets win it.
The Mets. All right. Who was your inspiration to become a sports writer?